Episode 17, Home Inspections, Outlets and Old Crap Moments. What actually happens after you go under contract. All right, my friend, you found the house. The seller accepted your offer, and now you're feeling like the king or queen of real estate. But just as you're starting to imagine where your couch is going to go, boom, now it's time for the home inspection. Hey, it's time for another episode of the First Time Keys podcast. It's your host, your Uncle Adam. Do me a favor before we get into this, go down and hit the like and subscribe button. That definitely helps out the podcast. It helps out me. And in the end, it helps out you because it allows me to keep jumping on here and giving you great first time home buyer content. All right, let's get into this. This is where a lot of homeowners and first time home buyers really start to feel anxiety. They start wondering, what if the roof is trash? What if the foundation is cracked? What if that cute little 1950s rancher has termites that are holding a grudge? All right, so take a deep breath. We're going to go all through what actually happens during a home inspection, what to expect in that report, and what matters and what's just old fashioned house stuff. And more importantly, we're also going to discuss what is and what is not a home inspection. All right. So, the idea of this episode today is to help give you an insight look as to what the home inspection process is going to look like, what you're going to expect, and most importantly, how to keep your cool and your senses through all of it. So, are you ready? Let's get going. So, let's start here. When do you actually get the home inspection? All right. So, the home inspection happens after you're under contract, meaning you and the seller, you've agreed to terms. You've agreed to a price, you've agreed to a closing date, you've agreed to financing, you've agreed to everything that's in that contract. It's not part of the house hunting process. And I know HGTV makes it look like some home buyers are doing inspections during the home showings. That's not how it works. The term that gets thrown around a lot, especially on HGTV, is, "Oh, we're in escrow." Let me put a little common language. Let me York County this up. Escrow just means you're under contract. Means the house is pending. You and the seller have agreed to terms, and you basically have locked it down. The inspection now is your chance to lift the hood and see what's really going on underneath the surface. In most contracts, I can tell you here in PA, buyers typically have 10 days to call the home inspector, get the inspections completed. That's what's called the inspection contingency period. That's when you're going to bring in that licensed inspector, not a contractor. We'll get into that in just a moment. Bring in the inspector, review the report, and decide what they want to do next. During this time, you can negotiate repairs. You can ask for credits. You can ask for additional cash, or even walk away if it's a deal breaker. The one thing you're not going to do is ask for a complete home to be rebuilt. Okay, so we're going to get into what is important, what's not important in just a moment. But just keep in mind, if you're planning on getting a home inspection before making an offer, that's not going to happen. Okay? And the reason being is no homeowner is going to open themselves up to the liability of you, your parents, an uncle, a family friend, a home inspector coming through and just completely decimating their home without some sort of contract and reassurance that they're actually going to sell the home to you. All right. So they're not just going to open it up for anybody who's coming through to inspect every time they come in. That's going to happen after we've gone under contract. So if you think that's the case, I'm here to throw the water on the fire of that now. Save your money. Wait for the home inspection until you're actually under contract. Okay. Now, what does the home inspection actually cover? All right. So think of a home inspector. A good home inspector is like a house detective. They're going to check out the roof. They're going to look at the foundation. They're going to check out the plumbing. the HVAC, meaning the furnace or boiler, and the central air conditioning unit if the house you're buying has central air. They're also going to dig into the electrical system. They're going to take off the panel of the electric box, okay, the main service panel of the electrical system. They're going to take that off and they're going to look at it. They're not able to get in behind the walls and dig into every single circuit. They're going to check the outlets and they're going to go through and see the service panel, okay? They're also going to check out the windows. They're going to look at the doors. They're going to check out the insulation up in the attic and crawl spaces. You know, the places you really never want to be, that's where they're going to go. I've had home inspectors uh, wiggle themselves in about a 2 to 2.5 foot size crawl space under homes. And I'm looking at it going, I ain't going underneath there because the last thing I want to do is come face to face with an animal that doesn't have legs. Or maybe an animal that even does have legs that was going to sit there and surprise you. That's where a home inspector is going to go. So they're going to check out everything they can see with the naked eye. All right. It's called a non intrusive inspection. So, by that, meaning they're not going to just cut open walls, they're not going to tear up flooring. You know, if you're buying a home that was built, say, in the 1960s or 70s, and there's carpet in the hallway and the bedrooms, and you're going, oh, I wonder if I actually have hardwood floors underneath there. It's not the home inspector's job to rip up the carpet and take a look. All right. If they do, now the home inspector is on the hook for replacing that carpet. All right. Nothing that they want to do. They're also not going to move furniture. So, again, keep in mind, they're going to look at everything they can see with the naked eye. All right. So, whatever they can see, that's what they're going to check out. The other thing here, just to go back, is you want to have a licensed inspector, not a contractor. And I'm sure that statement alone is going to piss a few people off, rub some people the wrong way. And I'm okay with that. In my time in this business, I have had folks that hire an inspector, which is a generalist. And that's the thing to keep in mind. A home inspector is a generalist, where a contractor typically has an area of expertise. And a lot of times, especially if it's a contractor that's outside of family, they're coming in going, oh, this is my chance to get some job quotes and maybe get some future projects here from these folks. Not saying they're not finding things that need to be done or not need to be done, but they're going into your home inspection with a complete other set of priorities. Their priority is you're calling me out here. I'm looking for job. I'm looking for work because as a contractor, that's how I get paid. I get paid to do projects and complete projects. A home inspector gets paid to inspect the house. So something you want to keep in mind. Not saying you've got to follow my rule, but generally, these are things you want to keep in mind as you're approaching the home inspection. Also, with the home inspection, depending on the type of home you're buying, there are several different types of inspections you can have. Today, we're really going to be focusing on the general home inspection, AKA the whole house report. In addition to the whole house, you're going to have a wood infestation, which is going to be termites, carpenter ants, carpenter bees, wood mold, wood fungi. Okay. Typically, if you're doing government financing or specialized financing, this is going to be a report that they're going to want to have for underwriting. The home inspection, though, no one's going to ask you for. This is your knowledge as the potential new homeowner. Other types of inspections you can have. You can have the radon tested. If you're in areas of the country that have high pockets of radon, ask your agent, they'll tell you. Here in our area in South Central PA, throughout most of Pennsylvania, we do have higher areas of radon, so it's not uncommon to have a radon test done as part of the home inspection. If you're in an area that's more rural, where you don't have public water and public sewer, it's very common to have a water test done to look at the chemical makeup of the drinking water, as well as with the septic inspection. If you don't have public sewer, you're going to want to have the septic checked out to make sure that the septic system is in good working order. So there's a lot of different inspections you can have. Today, we're primarily going to focus on the whole house inspection. And with that, when you have that home inspection, they're going to give you overall a top to bottom overview of the home's health. Again, this is a non intrusive, it's not an MRI. They're giving the home a physical, it's not surgery. So, those are the things as you're going into this. You're going to get a ton of information. That report is going to be long. Like, grab a cup of coffee and wipe out your plans for the afternoon long. Okay, but don't panic. This is going to be close to a 50-page report, but it doesn't mean the house is falling apart. Most of it's minor stuff, maintenance tips, and quite honestly, it's a lot of legal cover your ass language. All right. Remember, I just said the home inspector, he's a generalist. They're going to have in there the date and the time of the home inspection. They're also going to mention what the weather conditions were like. All that is done to cover their ass. Okay. It's a technical term. It's called CYA. And we'll talk about how to read this report without crying in just a few moments. All right. So, again, home inspector, they're a generalist. They're going to see everything they can see with the naked eye. They're not going to rip apart the house. They're not going to get in behind walls, but they are going to give you a really good, at that moment, snapshot picture of what the home looks like. Definitely way more than what you're able to do at just a regular home showing. When you're there to look at the home, you're going to be there for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45. Every now and then I've had a showing that lasts an hour, but that hour primarily is a lot of talking. But during a home inspection, the average home inspection is anywhere from 2.5 to 4 hours, depending on the size of the home and the makeup. That inspector is able to do a way more detailed job and timing of going through the home. And at the inspection, you want to be there. I always tell my clients, give that home inspector that first hour to get a head start. They're going to budget about 3.5 hours for that inspection for the day. Give the home inspector that first hour to get a head start and to get a good idea of what's going on. Then show up at the beginning of that, at the end of that first hour. They'll get you caught up with everything they found up to this point. And then from there, you can kind of coattail the inspector and ask questions. The reason why I say give them that first hour, again, they only have so much time in the day. And then generally, as humans, once we get started talking, we have a hard time shutting up. That's the reason why I'm doing a podcast. So give them that time, but you're going to have a way more in-depth version of that home during the home inspection than what you did at the showing. All right. Now, there is something I want to address at the forefront of this podcast, of this particular episode, because it is something that shows up in damn near every inspection report. And that is a GFCI. All right, Uncle Adam, what's a GFCI? All right, so here we go. A GFCI stands for a ground fault circuit interrupter. It's that little outlet with the red and black reset buttons. And sometimes they're not red and black, but you'll see them oftentimes in kitchens, in bathrooms, in garages, near laundry, basically anywhere that in the home that's going to be near water. Here's what they do. If there's anything out of the ordinary with the electrical current, like water getting involved, it's going to shut it off instantly. Think of it like a mini superhero that keeps you from being electrocuted while you're drying your hair. Okay? Inspectors absolutely love to flag these. It is, let's just face it, if they see a missing GFCI, they get a little tingle that goes up their back. It just is. If they're missing, if they're installed wrong, or they're not functioning, it's going to be in the report. Don't let a GFCI note freak you out. Okay, most GFCI issues can be cured for about 15 to 20 bucks with a trip to your local hardware store. It's not a reason to walk away from your dream home. Think of that GFCI issue in a house, like your house failed to download the latest iOS update on your phone. It still works, it just needs a little tech support. So if you see a GFCI issue, don't let it freak you out. It's a pretty minor piece. Now, if that's minor, what should we be concerned about? What are the things that matter? And what are the things that you shouldn't let hold you up? So let's get into it. The big items, okay? Think big ticket, think expensive, and then also think safety and structural. And that's where we're going to start. Structural issues, foundation cracks, okay? When you go into a home showing, anytime I'm showing a house, one of the things I always do, if we've got a basement and it's an unfinished basement, we're going downstairs and I'm going over to the foundation wall and I'm looking down the length of the wall. And I'm also taking a step back to make sure there's no serious cracking. Especially if you have an older foundation. If you've got an old cinder block foundation, this can be somewhat common where you're going to get step cracks. Those are very common. What you're looking for is making sure those where those cracks are, the wall isn't pushing itself out or there's not some serious separation between the cracks. A lot of times, if there's cracking that's there, a home inspector will note it. And if they see movement, when I say movement, think of one part of the wall is in one spot and the other part of the wall is either out or in further. Okay, that's movement. That's typically when a home inspector will note it and then recommend a structural engineer come in to do further evaluation. All right. The other thing you want to be cognizant of, especially in an old foundation, is the wall bowing. Is there any way that that wall is either bowing horizontally or vertically? Again, some homes, as the home sits and settles, the ground level will actually force itself, and you'll see a crack that goes all the way along a portion of the foundation. Those are serious, okay, because those cost a lot of money to have properly repaired. Not that they can't be repaired, but they are a serious issue, and that's something you definitely want to be cognizant of during the inspection. The other thing, active roof leaks. One of the things my clients will always see me do when I'm doing a home showing is before we even get into the house, when I get out of my car, the first place I'm looking is up at the roof. I'm looking to take an educated guess at the age of the roof. Are there any upturned shingles? Is it, getting very granular? So what does that roof look like? And then as you're going through the home, always looking up, constantly looking up, looking for roof leaks. Now, here's the deal. Sometimes you can't see a roof leak because, well, it's covered between insulation and crawl space or attic. That's why that home inspector going into those areas is so vitally important. They're going to check those out. Other areas, electrical fire hazards. Okay. If it's an old home, and when I say old, I mean old. Think 100 years old. Knob and tube wiring up in the attic or downstairs in the basement. They're going to flag that stuff because that actually becomes a fire hazard. And for a lot of states in the country, some insurance companies actually won't insure it, or it'll be a much higher insurance cost because of it's a fire hazard. So electrical fire hazards, double taps in the electrical panel. Those are things you want to have addressed. Major plumbing problems. If you've got an active leak, that's a problem. So major plumbing issues. Obviously, the big one, mold. Mold or moisture intrusion. Now, mold comes in a couple different flavors. Literally. You have your typical surface mold, where it's a damp area, you get a little surface mold. Nothing super, super serious, but you still want to get it taken care of. Then there's black mold. And I will tell you, black mold and surface mold are two completely different types of mold. Grab a cup of coffee and let it sit on your kitchen counter for a couple days. And after a couple days, you'll see a little mold, start to form on that cup of coffee, at the very top. That's surface mold. Let moisture sit and continue to grow and fester over a long period of time. Oh, that's black mold. Black mold legitimately feels like someone else is in the room with you. Uh, Several years ago, I remember showing a home and it was a foreclosure and it had serious, and I mean serious moisture issues over time. And it just grew and grew and grew and was downstairs in the basement. And I walked down and there is this just complete undescribable yet indistinguishable odor coming from the basement. And then as I'm down there, there's that feeling of I'm not alone. And it indeed was the black mold. Black mold has a presence about it. And it's hard to describe the exact feeling other than when you're in it, you know it, and you want to get the hell away from it. Okay? So, serious mold issues need to be addressed or running away from. The other one is moisture. Okay? Any home inspector is going to tell you 90% of home ownership is just keeping the house dry. Nothing will depreciate the value and the structural integrity of your home more than water. Water is the biggest enemy of any home. And here's the deal, water, if it can find a crack, if it can find a crevice, water will get into it. So a home inspector is going to show you all the areas that are going to be maintenance areas to make sure you're keeping them dry. But more importantly, if you have a large moisture issue, particularly this is going to show up in basements and or roof areas, these are serious concerns that you're going to want to have a conversation with your agent on how you're going to address them. Okay. Now, the flip side of this, what's not a big deal? What are things that are going to come up that you're going to be like, it's okay? Let's start with the easy stuff. Missing window screens, not a big problem. If there's some window screens that need to be replaced, let me tell you, it is one of the easiest repair jobs you'll ever do as a homeowner. And if you're not comfortable doing them, just take the screens to your hardware store and they'll do it. It really is it's a very inexpensive repair to have done. Do not let some missing window screens stop you from buying your dream home. Drippy faucets, again, minor plumbing. Don't let it stop you. Uncapped gas lines for dryers you don't even have. Peeling paint in the basement. 9 times out of 10, you're going to repaint anyway. An outlet in a garage that hasn't worked since 1972. Guess what? Hasn't worked in 50 years. Probably not going to work in another 50 years. No one's using the damn thing anyway. At the end of the day, the inspector's job is to document everything. Our job as your agent is to help you prioritize what's worth addressing and what's just old house stuff. What's just normal run-of-the-mill homeowner DIY. The old rule, as we said to begin the show, anytime you own a home, there's always going to be projects. There's always going to be minor repairs. There's going to be major repairs too down the road, but that's just part of home ownership. What we're trying to avoid, though, is those major repair items that really prevent that barrier to entry, that barrier to you getting in the home. Because if there is a big issue, we need to address it at the forefront and go, is this something we really want to deal with? And if not, move on. All right. So what do you do after you have the report? How do you handle all this? Well, first off, don't panic scroll. All right. Skip the summary first. So on the very first page is going to be the a picture of the property, typically with the inspector's information. Second page is typically, your chapter book. Here's how this is done. And then the next few pages are typically what's going to be called significant findings. Typically, these are marked in red. These are your bigger issues. We'll address those together. Okay. This is our area that we're really going to focus on. Once you get through that, it's going to be normal, general items and really a lot of maintenance issues. Okay. We'll break it down. So you and your agent, and if it's me that you're working with, we will take the inspection page by page and issue by issue. We'll break it down. We're going to talk strategy. And then we're also going to talk, are we looking to ask for repairs? Are we asking for credits? Or are we walking? And like I've said, there are times you may need to walk. I've terminated plenty of contracts over inspections. I just had one a couple months ago where folks were buying a property. It was a flip. Again, flips are my least favorite home to deal with because, like Forrest Gump says, you never know what you're going to get. And at the showing, the house looked nice. We knew there was some things, where areas where they solidly cut corners, but they appeared to be more cosmetic and weren't jumping off the page, so to speak, as okay, we're going to have major issues. Boy, were we wrong. We get to the inspection, and there is a gluttony of major problems with this home. A lot of them dealing with water that we couldn't find at the showing. There was an area of the roof where they rubbered over bad and moisture damaged wood, and it was actually leaking coming down not only inside the house but in between the home, between the framing. So there are times when you see things like that, and you're like, look, we're out. And the reason why that inspection is a contingency is it gives you the ability to kill the contract and walk away and move on to the next house without losing your deposit money. Now, here's the deal. At the end of the day, once you've gotten the home under contract as a buyer, mentally, you've already moved into the house. You're already placing furniture. You're picturing what room is going to be for what. Like mentally, you're already in. The seller, on the flip side of this, they've already mentally moved down and they've cashed the check. All right. Even the agents involved have mentally cashed the commission check. So when an inspection happens and it's time to terminate, are there some hard feelings from time to time? Yes, but they're fleeting because at the end of the day, it's your home and it's your money. So don't be afraid that if you get into a home and you're like, yeah, based on the inspection, this thing scares the living daylights out of me. Have that conversation with your agent because this is a home you're going to lay your head in. You've heard me say this 100 times. This is your house. This is the home you're going to celebrate birthdays in, holidays. You're going to lay your head on the bed, on the pillow at night, every night. This is your safe space in your home. The last thing you want is the feeling that your safe space is coming back to haunt you because of repairs or issues in the home that have never been addressed. So if you need to walk away, you need to walk away. And it's up to the agents, the professionals involved to get you out of that contract and get your deposit money back. Okay. Now, if you're staying and there are big ticket issues that need to be addressed, get estimates before panicking. Sometimes a major problem is only a few $100, not thousands. Okay. Especially if this is your first home and you're not familiar with what some of these things are, with a furnace repair, it could be just a couple $100 for a normal service checkup to get an issue resolved and not thousands of dollars for a brand new furnace. Okay. A hot water heater issue might only be a couple $100, not $2,000 to replace a whole new hot water heater. It might be just the expansion tank or a TPR valve. Talk to your inspector or a plumber for definitions of those. So again, take it all and then don't panic. That's the reason why we've got contractors to take care of getting estimates to know what those things are going to cost. The other thing too is use it as a plan. Use that home inspection to plan maintenance repairs, upgrades, and even DIY projects. Think of it as like your homeownership cheat sheet. I had folks that just closed a few months ago, and they were legitimately looking for a project. They were looking for a home that they could turn part of it into an extra living unit, rent out one part of the home, live in the main. And we needed a project house in order to make that happen. So we get the home under contract. They opt to have inspections. Now, this was a home that had already been under contract once. And because of the inspection report, the seller was actually kind of gun shy in taking another offer that was having inspections because they're like, wait a minute, I've already been down this road before. I played this game. I don't know if I want to jump on this ride a second time. And I had the conversation with their agent and saying, no, here's the deal. For my folks, this is exactly what they're looking for. They're not using the home inspection as a way to get out of the contract, unless obviously there's something seriously wrong that comes up as a surprise. They're using the inspection in order to tabulate and prioritize what projects are getting done first, which items they need to put off for a little bit later because they're not as demanding or needed right now, and to kind of put together a job list. So think of that home inspection report as just that, as it's a maintenance checklist. And if it's nothing that's seriously wrong with the home, that's what it is. It's a DIY project list. So again, the inspection isn't here to ruin your dream. It's here to make sure your dream doesn't secretly involve a mold colony in the attic. It's totally normal to feel a little overwhelmed, but don't let that report scare you. Unless the issues are truly major, most homes, even new ones, have things to fix. And there's two things with this right here. First off, there is no such thing as a perfect home. Every home has issues. Every home you're going to find, there is no such thing as a perfect inspection report. All right. Again, the inspection is not pass or fail. Don't think of the home as taking a test. The home is getting a physical. It's not there to graduate. Okay. So there is no such thing as a pass or fail with the inspection. And again, you're not going to find perfect. It doesn't exist. If you're looking at new build, if you're looking at new construction, I've oftentimes have new construction homes have an even longer and deeper home inspection list than a home that's 75 years old. It's why you want to make sure, one of the reasons why you want to make sure if you are looking at buying new construction, you have your own agent representing you with new construction. But that's a different topic for a different podcast. But I do want to take note, if you are considering new construction, don't let the home builder talk you out of getting an inspection. They will. Don't do it. Have an inspection and have that home checked out. All right. There's always going to be things to fix. In all your years of home ownership, there's always going to be projects. Take that home inspection, grab a pen, take notes, and let's inspect like professionals. Okay? Don't let it bug you out. Next episode, we're going to be tackling appraisals. That's right. That awkward moment where a stranger tells you what your dream house is actually worth. Yeah, these are fun times. That's a whole other reason to drink. All right. Please do me a favor. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that like button. Please leave a review if this episode has saved you from having a meltdown. And send it to your house hunting bestie who's about to Google GFCI for the 5th time. All right. This has been your Uncle Adam. Make it a great day. And I'll catch you guys right here next time on the First Time Keys podcast.